Harsha in Syracuse, New York.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, so I'm Harsha, and I just basically wanted to address a question that came in from a theist about a couple weeks ago. He basically said that scientists haven't been able to demonstrate how information arrives on its own, and he's basically saying, you know, it's a belief for theists to believe in God, and it's a belief that information came on its own, so it's a wash. They're both equal, right? And you guys responded with by saying, you know, the evidence, the burden of evidence is on you guys and not on the scientists to be able to demonstrate how information arrives.
Well,
and you guys are correct.
We
right?
weren't there.
Right. No, you guys are correct, right? But I want to say that we actually have been able to demonstrate how information can arrive on its own. I'm a PhD student in biology.
Okay.
And basically, in my biochemistry class, we were reading about this this method called the SELEX method. So anytime a theist ever brings this up, you can say, look up the SELEX method.
Can you spell that?
SELEX. It stands for systematic.
SELEX as in xylophone. F. SELEX.
Like xylophone.
F is in Frank. What? Oh.
Yeah. So basically, if I'll tell you what it stands for, it's an acronym. Systematic evolution of ligands by exponential enrichment. And this is basically a method that scientists have used to recreate the most complicated enzyme that exists, called the ribosome, right? And from basically just using naturalistic principles and just using natural selection and random mutation. And they're able to do it with RNA, just random sequences of RNA. And basically, you can't get more complicated than this. This is as complex as it gets in terms of molecular evolution. So this is explained very well in biochemistry textbooks. And it's actually a technique that's used to develop new drugs, because drugs are getting so expensive these days that, you know, you can't, that drug companies are no longer, you know, investing in making drugs. So, sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this isn't just a theoretical technique. This is actually a very practical technique that will save billions of dollars for pharmaceutical companies. So I did want to address that. And
well, that's cool. So let's pop up a level. You know, the creationists and intelligent design folks, kind of two sides of the same coin, have been trying to say, oh, well, there's holes in the science, and this can't happen naturally, and these sorts of things. And pretty much everything they've come up with has been taken seriously by scientists, and they've gone and investigated it and found that, hey, you're wrong. You know, here's how this happens. The bacterial flagellum was another big example of that, and this whole idea of irreducible complexity is, so pretty much every single time the creationists have come up with one of these arguments, it's been proven false, or their arguments are bogus.
Right. And speaking of irreducible complexity, you can actually demonstrate that in a living organism. The reason Behe actually uses irreducible complexity is with molecules is because molecules are mysterious. But you can actually see irreducible complexity with, say, the heart. You know, if you remove like a chamber of the heart, the whole organism fails, the whole system fails. And that didn't stop Darwin, obviously. So it's actually a very simplistic point that nobody takes seriously. But because we're talking about molecules, it somehow becomes important, you know, and it's not.
Yeah, And so the whole thinking here is backwards, right? They're starting, there must be a God, blah, 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 God, God, God. How can we twist our notions of reality, our notions of science to fit that?
Right.
Whereas science works the opposite way. It says, okay, we're going to build on what we know, and we're going to explore and find out, go where the evidence takes us.
Right.
Good or bad or indifferent. Right.
Yeah, and not only that, it takes us to a place where we can save billions of dollars producing drugs that can fight bacteria that are evolving. You know, this is a fact. You know, bacteria evolve, we make drugs, and they evolve to be resistant to those drugs, and that costs us billions of dollars. So in religion, you have no practical benefit from reaching that conclusion that supports religion. But
unless you're a minister.
No choice, right? They have no choice but to believe in evolution, because if you use evolution in the SELEX method or any other way of developing drugs, you're going to save billions of dollars. It's a practical benefit.
Well, just playing creationist advocate for a second, I know what they would say if you brought that up. They would say, well, you did it in a lab, and that required intelligence. So anything you produced was a product of
was tainted with intelligence,
I
right?
can explain.
Yeah.
So actually, I talk to creationists all the time.
Yes, they do say that, right?
They do say that, but here's the thing: like, if it did happen in nature, we're talking about DNA, right? We're talking about RNA. We can observe it. The only way to know that that information can come on its own is in an experiment. You know, you can't say it happened 10 miles away if it's not under a microscope, right? So, so if they say it has to happen in nature, but it cannot happen in an experiment, they're just putting you in a situation where you can't prove it, right?
Yeah.
So that being aside, the SELEX method actually uses random mutation and natural selection, and that's it. Right? So there's no, like, I'm not doing anything to manipulate the system, right? Basically what it does is you have tens of thousands of randomly generated RNA molecules, right? And you basically have it bind to a certain protein that is important, say, for bacterial growth, right? And it binds to stick to stop the protein from working, right? And the thing is, some proteins, some of those molecules bind better than others, right? So you isolate those molecules. That's a very simple process. It happens in nature all the time where certain things are selected, right? And that's all we're doing. That's basically the only thing that the scientists are doing, is selecting the ones that bind, right? And then basically you hit them with random mutations again. Then some molecules bind better, so it's able to target that protein, stop that protein from working, so the bacteria dies, right? So this is a practical use. There's basically nothing that scientists are doing that nature cannot do on its own, which is just selection, you know? We see animals killing other animals at selection. You know, so this is the best, I think, evidence that we have. Otherwise, there's no way of proving it, you know? You have to have some, if they're asking for a way to prove that information arises on its own, you have to do it in an experiment. You know, you cannot do it in an experiment. So that's what I tell them, and I haven't heard a single response because nobody's a biologist. You know, I am. I'm going to be one.
Yeah.
You know, so I can.
There's some analogies you can make to genetic programming in computer science, where you're using the same sorts of techniques to solve practical problems, and there's actually quite a number of patents that have been won using these techniques. And so you can't argue that there isn't an intelligence or creative process going on.
Exactly.
Right. So these
And
are all very powerful answers to this sort of crazy idea that that information can't be created through natural selection. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. Thanks for giving us that information. It looks like there is a Wikipedia page about this, and that's SELEX, which is short for Systematic Evolution of Ligands by Exponential Enrichment.
Okay.
So people can look that up.
So thank you. We're going to take another call. Thank you very much for your call.
See you.